Let's talk about Canada, the U.S.'s closest friend, neighbor, and economic partner. For generations, the border between these two countries has symbolized not just geography, but a deep, mutual trust and shared prosperity. Every day, thousands of people, goods, and ideas flow back and forth, shaping the lives of millions on both sides. This isn't just a neighborly relationship, it's a partnership that has helped both nations grow stronger, more innovative, and more secure. For decades, our relationship has been stable and essential, but now, as of July 30th, 2025, trade talks have collapsed, and we're on the brink of a major economic fight. The collapse didn't happen overnight. It's the result of months of tense negotiations, mounting frustrations, and political pressure on both sides. What was once a model of international cooperation is now at risk of unraveling, and the consequences could be far-reaching. This isn't just a headline, it's a crisis for both economies. Investors are rattled, businesses are scrambling to understand what comes next, and families are left wondering how this will affect their jobs, their savings, and their future. The uncertainty is already sending shockwaves through financial markets, and the anxiety is palpable in boardrooms and living rooms alike. In 2024, U.S.-Canada trade topped $760 billion. These are deeply intertwined economies. Every minute, over $1 million worth of goods crosses the border. From auto parts and energy to food and technology, the supply chains that connect our countries are vast and complex. Disruptions here don't just mean delays, they mean real losses for businesses, workers, and consumers. For many states, Canada is the top export market. This is not a minor dispute. Entire industries, like manufacturing, agriculture, and energy, depend on smooth cross-border trade. When that's threatened, it's not just big corporations that feel the pain. It's small businesses, farmers, truck drivers, and factory workers whose livelihoods are suddenly at risk. The USMCA, meant to ensure stability, is now in jeopardy. And a trade war could make life more expensive and less secure for millions. Prices on everyday goods could rise, from groceries to cars to electronics. Families might find their budgets stretched thinner, and businesses could be forced to cut jobs or close altogether. The very agreement designed to protect us from this kind of turmoil is now at risk of falling apart. This isn't just about tariffs on copper or dairy, it's about the very foundation of our alliance. The issues at stake go beyond economics. They touch on trust, security, and the future of North American cooperation. If we can't resolve this, it could set a dangerous precedent for how we handle disagreements with our closest allies. Disrupting these supply chains is like throwing a wrench into a finely tuned machine. The effects ripple outward, causing breakdowns in production, delays in delivery, and higher costs for everyone involved. What starts as a policy dispute quickly becomes a real-world problem for workers, families, and communities. The fallout could be catastrophic, all because of a high-stakes gamble that few support. As factories go quiet and stores shutter their doors, the human cost becomes impossible to ignore. This trade spat isn't just a political story, it's a turning point that could reshape the future for millions of people on both sides of the border. To understand why Canada is so alarmed, you have to look at the radical shift in U.S. trade policy under President Trump. Instead of seeing tariffs as a last resort, Trump's administration has made them the default setting, an opening move, not a final warning. The message is clear. If you want relief, you have to pay up, or as Trump puts it, offer a tribute. This isn't just about economics. It's about power, leverage, and rewriting the rules of global commerce. The old model of free trade, where countries negotiated in good faith, seeking mutual benefit, is being dismantled. In its place is a system where even America's closest allies are forced to make vague, unenforceable promises to buy more U.S. goods, or else face punishing tariffs that can cripple entire industries. The rules are no longer clear, and the goalposts keep moving. This isn't economic policy in the traditional sense. It's more like a global shakedown, where the world's largest economy uses its weight to extract concessions, not through negotiation, but through threats and intimidation. The uncertainty this creates ripples through boardrooms and government offices worldwide. We've already seen this play out with the European Union and Japan. Tariffs are imposed with little warning, and then relief is offered, but only if these countries agree to non-binding, often symbolic commitments to buy more American products. There's no guarantee the relief will last and no real way to enforce the promises. The underlying message is unmistakable. Partnership is out and a kind of protection racket is in. The U.S. is acting less like a trusted ally and more like a powerful enforcer demanding payment for protection. Now Canada finds itself in the crosshairs, But unlike Europe or Japan, Canada's economy is deeply intertwined with the US, from auto parts to agriculture, energy to technology. More than 70% of Canadian exports go south of the border. That means any disruption, any tariff hits Canada much harder and faster. A 15% tariff isn't just a painful blow, it's an existential threat to entire sectors of Canadian industry. Factories could close, jobs could vanish, and communities could be devastated almost overnight. For many Canadian workers and business owners, this is a crisis that threatens their livelihoods and their future. What President Trump calls leverage, Canadian leaders see as economic self-destruction. The power imbalance is stark, and the stakes are enormous. For Canada, this isn't just a negotiation tactic, it's a threat to their national well-being. You can't build a stable, lasting partnership by demanding your closest ally pay for its own subjugation. Trust and cooperation are replaced by suspicion and resentment, making future collaboration nearly impossible. This approach doesn't just risk a trade war, it turns friends into adversaries, undermining decades of hard-won cooperation and trust. The ripple effects could reach far beyond North America, shaking the foundations of alliances around the world. Canada is now being forced into an impossible choice: accept economic ruin or sacrifice national pride and independence. It's a dilemma with no easy answers, and the consequences will be felt for generations. The stakes couldn't be higher. Every decision, every concession, could shape the future of Canada's economy and its relationship with its most powerful neighbor. This is the core of the current standoff, a test not just of trade policy but of national resolve, identity, and the true meaning of partnership in a changing world. The trade talks themselves: less chess match, more chaos. Canada, led by Prime Minister Mark Carney, expected tough negotiations, but instead faced a barrage of shifting demands from the U.S. team. No formal list of American requests, just confusion, dairy, language laws, environmental policies, banking, all thrown in at random. It's impossible to negotiate when the goalposts keep moving. Canada's response: no deal is better than a bad deal. They want stability and clear rules, not unpredictable threats. The talks broke down days before the deadline, with Trump threatening tariffs up to 35%. The U.S. treats this like a minor inconvenience, but for Canada, it's a blank check they refuse to sign. The result, a costly stalemate. Both sides are now bracing for economic pain. Canada's fear is rooted in recent U.S. deals with the EU and Japan. These agreements have sent shockwaves through Ottawa as officials watch closely, realizing that what happened to their allies could soon happen to them. The stakes are high, and the anxiety is palpable. The U.S. imposed a 15% tariff on most EU goods, and a staggering 50% on steel and aluminum, in exchange for only vague, non-committal promises to buy American energy. These tariffs hit at the heart of European industry, leaving businesses scrambling to adapt. The so-called concessions from the EU were little more than empty gestures with no real guarantees or timelines. There were no specifics, no mechanisms for enforcement, just a demand for tribute, thinly disguised as diplomacy. The deals were shrouded in ambiguity, leaving European negotiators frustrated and uncertain about the future. Japan and Britain found themselves in similar positions. They too were forced to accept tariffs up front, with only non-binding commitments offered in return. The pattern was unmistakable. The U.S. was setting the rules, and everyone else was expected to fall in line, regardless of the consequences for their own economies. The pattern is clear. The U.S. dictates terms, not negotiates. These are not partnerships built on trust or mutual respect, but rather on power and leverage. The message is simple: accept our terms or face the consequences. This isn't about mutual benefit, it's about dominance. The U.S. is using its economic might to force others into submission, prioritizing its own interests above all else. For smaller economies, the threat is existential. Canada, far more dependent on U.S. trade than the EU, would be devastated by similar terms. With so much of its economy tied to its southern neighbor, even a small disruption could have massive ripple effects across industries and communities. A 15% tariff could cripple Canadian industries, leading to factory closures, layoffs, and a sharp decline in exports. The livelihoods of thousands of Canadian workers hang in the balance, and the threat is all too real. Canadian negotiators are being asked to accept a deal that offers nothing but the hope things won't get worse. There are no assurances, no safety nets, just a vague promise that disaster might be avoided if they comply. Refusing is the only rational choice. To accept such terms would be to surrender Canada's economic future and independence. Standing firm is a matter of national survival. Canada has seen the horror movie before, they know how it ends. The warning signs are all there, and the lessons of history are impossible to ignore. That's why they're holding out, determined not to repeat the mistakes of others and resolved to protect their own future, no matter how ominous the shadow may seem. What's at stake? Real jobs, real industries. The auto sector is a prime example. Parts cross the border multiple times before a car is finished. A 35% tariff would send costs soaring, hurting consumers and threatening jobs in both countries. Steel, aluminum, and now copper face even higher tariffs. These aren't niche products, they're the backbone of modern manufacturing. Massive tariffs mean higher prices, stalled investment, and job losses. Businesses need stability, not chaos. Right now, uncertainty is freezing investment and putting jobs at risk. The damage is already being felt as companies pause plans and workers worry about the future. This isn't theory, it's happening now. Don't mistake Canada for a powerless victim. While the US wields tariffs, Canada has leverage in national security. The Arctic is becoming a strategic hotspot, and US defense relies on Canadian cooperation. Our missile defense systems and the North Warning System are integrated. America can't defend its northern frontier alone. Canada knows this, and can tie security cooperation to fair economic treatment. You can't demand help defending your cities while trying to bankrupt your ally. The US military understands Canada's strategic value, even if the administration doesn't. Canada's bargaining chip is subtle but powerful. They're signaling that security and trade are linked. This isn't just a trade spat, it's a test of the entire alliance. Canada is ready to use its leverage if pushed. With the August 1st deadline looming, this is a global game of chicken. Trump has threatened tariffs on multiple countries, not just Canada. Canada wants rules and stability. The US wants capitulation. Both sides are dug in, with little room to maneuver. For Canada, no deal is better than a bad deal that surrenders economic sovereignty. For Trump, backing down looks weak. The result, a looming trade war that could disrupt supply chains and shock the global economy. Both sides think the other will blink. That's a dangerous place to be. This isn't just about governments, it's about people. A trade war means higher prices for American consumers on everything from cars to groceries. Millions of jobs on both sides of the border are at risk. When supply chains break, companies cut jobs or shut down. For Canadians, the threat is even greater, a deep recession and hollowed-out industries. But the pain won't stay north. US businesses will lose customers, creating a vicious cycle. Our economies are deeply linked. Hurting one hurts both. This is a self-inflicted wound with no clear benefit. Ordinary families will pay the price. We're taking a sledgehammer to a system that works for everyone. What now? The most likely outcome: tariffs hit, pain follows, and both sides suffer. A last-minute deal is unlikely. Neither side wants to back down. The best hope is that the economic shock forces a return to the table. Maybe business and defense leaders will push for sanity. Until then, brace for disruption. The US and Canada are partners, not rivals. Our prosperity and security are shared. Winning a trade war with your closest ally is a losing strategy. Only partnership can get us out of this mess.